Welcome back, viewers, for the second part of this interview with Riccardo Bocco from the Graduate Institute in Geneva, having a look at the impact Arab Springs has had on Arab countries. So hope you enjoyed this interview. And what type of role does international economic aid play in development?
Well, the international development is a key issue in the region, though one might say that differently from other areas in the world, the Middle East is an oil-rich region, and definitely there is a difference between a number of countries who have their own oil resources and those who don't. And we see also how there is more and more an important inter-Arab regime flow of money, again taking Egypt these days, while Egypt is negotiating with difficulty an agreement with the IMF for a loan. Just yesterday, Qatar has promised to double its own aid to Egypt, just doubling it from $2.5 billion just to the double. So there is not only a possibility, an intra-Arab possibility of help and aid, but for a number of countries, and we can look at Tunisia, we can look at Syria, who are in bad need of aid for their own economic development. Now we can put aside a country like Syria because of the domestic events and the civil war which is going on, but Syria definitely will need aid to stabilize and to look to the future. So the kind of aid that will come, we may certainly see a continuation of the aid of the US. The European Union, which has vested interest in the Arab region, is supposed to reformulate its policy towards a new form of European neighborhood, inverted commas. Stefan Füle, who is the High Commissioner for the Enlargement, 1 year and a half ago, has openly admitted about the error, the past error of the European Union in the region in terms of not favoring the process of both human rights respect, which they paid lip service on paper, but in fact they were more interested in keeping some way a stability of the regimes. And what is, if you look from the Western side, what I perceive as a big challenge will be the capacity of the international investors and public investors in reframing their views about the Arab world. Meaning that the Bush period, as you mentioned before, has largely contributed to reshape an image of a Muslim world as a violent terrorist world, and continuing to portray this part of the world in typical Orientalist ways. I think that what we are witnessing today, and if we take the two regimes of Morsi and Ennahda in Tunisia, there I think that it will be the moderate Islamic regime that will be those who can bring democracy, and they have the legitimacy to do so. So, and I say that because those moderate Islamic regime, they have their own domestic battles with the extremists. But in economic terms, it's very simple. I mean, if you want to forbid foreign tourists to come on the shores of Tunisia or along the Nile, the budget of those states will be cut down by 30% of their revenues. So how to deal with the international dimension of the economy in terms of tourism economy, for example. So it will be those moderate Islamic regimes that may have the possibility of introducing appropriate reforms that will be perceived by Arab societies in a positive way. And therefore, the question is, will the European Union and the West at large be capable of looking at the Arab world in another way and finding new forms of partnership that will be conducive to new forms of democratization in the region?
And speaking of Europe, you believe Europe and Arab countries face four main challenges, including trade, migration, liberalisation, and of course, a solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, can you tell me more about this and, of course, how it can be solved?
Well, the Israeli-Palestinian issue, I think, is the key issue in the region and beyond. Both in political terms, of course. I will just take one example for that, because unless the Arab-Israeli issue will be solved, this will give, say, possibilities to Islamic extremist groups to say we are fighting for Palestine, therefore manipulating the Palestinian cause for other reasons. But if the Israeli-Palestinian issue is solved, Iran cannot say anything more against Israel on that ground. So, politically speaking, the solution of the conflict will have far-lasting consequences. And of course, economically speaking, we could finally move from an economy of war to an economy of peace, which was the project that Bush father had after the Gulf War of 1991, to have a peace economy and a new Middle East, which so far has not materialized. So the solution of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is a key issue, and it is as well for Israel, because we saw also the Israeli spring, inverted commas, last year, 2 years ago, where the economic situation in Israel, notwithstanding the official growth rate, is deceiving a big chunk of the middle class, of the Israeli middle class. And for the moment, there is a taboo, the one of talking about the occupation. But what is the cost of occupation, both economically and socially? Socially, the cost for the Israeli society is very high. And I think we cannot discard that, because the Palestinians, first of all, today have recognized through Oslo and many other processes the existence of the State of Israel. No European, Western countries or other countries, except the official discourses of Ahmadinejad in Iran, everybody wants the existence of Israel, but at certain conditions. And the occupation has to end. The Israelis are putting themselves back again into a form of ghetto. And I don't think that this will be conducive to a future that allies both social, economic, and political progress. The second, one of the second dimension you raised, which is trade liberalization, I think that the past 20 years from the Barcelona process onwards, as it was led by the European Union until the last Sarkozy project of the Mediterranean plan, those plans, they were articulated around a number of items. The main one has kept being trade liberalization. Now, the point is that the processes of trade liberalization have been representing for Europe important venues for expanding their own markets. But there, what is not materialized is a form of reciprocity. Take, as an example, the sector of agriculture. Europe will not be ready to liberalize its own sector of agriculture because they know the menace that they will have politically and domestically and economically. So, in terms of reciprocity, we are far from setting up a proper trade liberalization process with the Near East or the Middle East more in general. But it's really a big stake.
Thank you very much for this insight today.
You are most welcome.
And that is it for right now, but do stay tuned to Dukascopy TV for more interesting interviews and press reviews. But for now, goodbye.